Hello and welcome to Ward Talk, CTN's look at the political scene in Ann Arbor. I'm your host, Bonnie Gabowitz. We'll be discussing issues and solutions with the city council members from our 5 wards on the 3rd Wednesday of each month. Joining us is Jane Lumm for Ward 2. Welcome, Jane.
Thank you very much, Bonnie.
And Jane, I know you've been a council member for quite a few years. How many years is it now?
Quite a few. I've served since 2011 on city council. I did serve previously in the 1990s, so I've
So this is your second
go around. So for a total of about a dozen years. So
all right. So again, as I say to several people,
great privilege.
Yeah, it's wonderful when you have such a history because you really know what things were before and what things are now and what you see in the future.
Thank you.
And one of the things in the future that we really haven't talked about before was discussion about changing the way the elections run, and it's called Nonpartisan Elections. I'd like to touch upon that. Excellent. Because I know you are a driving force behind trying to change the way. Right now, if I understand it, when someone runs for a council position, they are either an independent, a Republican, or a Democrat. They name the party.
Right. That's
and
correct.
It's in when you vote, it's actually by your name. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
The party ID.
Okay.
Right.
So what is it that you would like to change?
Well, it's not necessarily what I would like to change, but it's at least placing this question about whether or not we should have partisan elections before our voters. And our Ann Arbor residents have not had a chance to weigh on this question for 60 plus years. And our partisan elections are established defined in our city charter. So moving to nonpartisan elections requires changing the city charter, which can only be done appropriately so, by voter referendum. And that can be done 2 ways. Council could place a ballot question. That requires 3/5 of the vote of council, or 7 of 11 council members, or by citizen petition. And so most recently, this was the 4th time I've brought this proposal forward. Council, unlike the prior 3 opportunities, voted 7-4 to place this question before voters. Again, we're placing the question, should or should we not have, paraphrasing, obviously, partisan elections.
Would this be for the upcoming election in November?
No, this would have placed this question on this ballot, so no. This would be for future elections. Okay. And so council approved this. So I thought, good, we're good to go. We'll get to place this question before voters, and the mayor vetoed.
So what happened?
The mayor vetoed it on we approved it on July 1st. The mayor vetoed it on July 5th. And then we tried again with an attempt to override the mayor's veto, which unfortunately requires 8 votes of council, and that we were not successful. So what's going to happen now? And I will just say just some background on nonpartisan elections and why I and others think this would be a positive for Ann Arbor. The key arguments, I think, are several. One, I think no question it would result in higher turnout at our elections, because then the deciding election would always occur in November, not in August.
And August tends to be a slow month,
right,
and people are on vacation.
It absolutely is.
So the numbers are much different in the August election.
Yes, very much so. So the elections would occur. It would strengthen democratic representation. It would occur when more people have the opportunity to participate. Nonpartisan local elections. I think if you look nationally, and across our state, it's a best practice. We are the clear outlier when it comes to partisan-based local elections.
If I understand, almost all areas in Michigan do have nonpartisan voting.
All but 3. Us, and Ypsilanti and Ionia, Michigan.
And then everyone else does have nonpartisan.
Right, and local. Right, and then of the key benchmarks that we often emulate. Cities like Boulder, Madison, Wisconsin, Berkeley, California, Austin, Texas, they're all nonpartisan. And as well as many other university cities, East Lansing, Columbus, Charlottesville, on and on. So best practice. Also, I think without question would increase the number of qualified candidates who would be running, because there would be fewer restrictions, fewer barriers, and obviously that's a good thing.
And I would think right now, the way it is, it really quashes the opportunity for independents to
It's
run.
very difficult.
And, because of this, you have to have a label.
It's very difficult, and yeah, no question, and that tells you nothing about the person running, about their positions on issues. I mean, just look at the makeup now. I'm the only independent on council, and there is a big, there's a large difference of philosophical opinions and views. I mean, I also think local issues are not ideological. They really aren't. And it really tells you, that party label tells you nothing about the person, their positions on issues, and I think so. Nonpartisan elections would force greater scrutiny of the of voters on the issues, on the candidates' positions, and importantly on the candidates' priorities. And yeah, so lots of reasons why this would be a good thing, and there's no reason at all, I think, no good reason to not allow voters to decide this question.
So my question to you then is, what does the other side say their reasoning is for keeping it partisan labeling? I mean, what is the benefit? Why are they saying let's not change it?
Well,
what's the argument?
I'll point to the mayor's veto statement that he issued. One thing he said, his veto message concluded that nonpartisan elections would, quote, create a real and substantial harm. Frankly, I find that laughable and nonsensical. How much real and substantial harm has it caused in the cities that we try to emulate, those cities I just mentioned? All those have nonpartisan elections. How much harm has it caused in every other city in Michigan, the state of Michigan, other than Ypsilanti and Ionia, who also do nonpartisan? But remember, he vetoed letting people decide. And the veto might be understandable if this were a referendum to do something that's odd or unusual, but Ann Arbor's clear outlier on this. So I mean, this is just the opposite. So
what's the next step then?
Thank you for asking, collect petition signatures to place this on the ballot. And I have been contacted by a number of people, thank you very much, and I've been in contact with the clerk's office, and basically we'll have to collect, let's see, about a little over 5,100 petition signatures to be precise, which is 5% of registered voters. They must be registered Ann Arbor voters. The signatures expire in a year. It's not clear when this will be placed on the ballot, but you can only put it on the ballot, I've learned, only citizen-initiated ballot referendum questions can only be put on the ballot for regularly scheduled primary or general elections. So I'm confident we'll get this on the ballot, and people are motivated. There's a lot of enthusiasm, momentum that's building, and I have heard from a lot of folks who feel that they deserve the right, I couldn't agree more, and should have this opportunity to weigh in on this matter. So this is not going to go away.
How do citizens keep abreast of what's going on and how this is moving forward? What's the best way to find out?
I've been away on vacation,
yeah.
And so, because people were motivated, they were frankly quite upset with this veto, to collect signatures now, to place it on this November's ballot, because it has to now, because of the mayor's veto, be a citizen-driven initiative, petition-driven initiative. It cannot, the November ballot doesn't qualify. Again, it can only be on a regularly scheduled primary or general election ballot. So
there's time.
Yeah. But we must get going with this, and we will. It's not going to go away. It's just, you know, this is not a trivial issue, and how you conduct elections is pretty important. It's important to folks, and we need to provide people with this opportunity. So we're going to be moving on to the next steps, and I just want to thank everyone who's offering already to help with that effort.
So we'll be
Stay
watching.
tuned.
We'll be watching
Yep.
this. Yes, and in terms of, we're going to switch now to talk about the solid waste management plan, because there was a time when one company stopped, I think, and we had another company pick up.
Well, no, we have two. You know, the city and Recycle Arbor
Right.
pick up our trash, solid waste, and our recyclables at the curb, both for residential, commercial, downtown areas, etc., across the city. No, what the city is now going to be discussing publicly, more publicly, because there have been committee meetings. We retained a consultant. Aptum is the consultant's name, to study and review all the city solid waste and recycling programs and operations. So this is a 5-year plan that we're developing, and over the next 12 months, Council will be making major decisions that will shape the city's solid waste and recycling programs for years to come. So this is a huge deal. The Council is going to have a working session on this September 9th, when we're going to receive the consultant's study and recommendation. The need for the study was triggered by a few things. One primary issue that needs to be dealt with are the operational and safety issues at the city-owned MRF. And there's also been, over this period of time, a virtual collapse of the recycling secondary markets, the resale markets. And then there's also...
Is that because there's a problem with where to put the recycled?
Who accepts the recycling in these secondary markets? Yeah, it's pretty complicated, but our struggles with that are not unique to Ann Arbor. It's a problem, it's an international problem, because China happened to take a lot of these materials.
And in the minute we have left, is this something that you see as a long-term working out, or is it something that could within a few months be resolved?
Well, we're going to be adopting a plan, a 5-year plan, but there are lots of recommendations to study. Again, it's this consultant study and recommendations cover a very broad scope. Again, all operational aspects: solid waste recycling, organics collection for residential and commercial, the MRF operation, downtown alley services, what's going to happen with the MRF.
So there are a lot of aspects to this.
A lot, and we can talk about that.
Okay, so we can continue.
Okay, because it's a big deal.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay.
Well, we'll get back to the big deal.
Okay, thanks.
We want to hear from you, so please email us questions to ctn@a2gov.org or tweet us at #CTNInArbor. We're taking a break, and we'll be coming back with more from Ward 2. Hi, I'm Bonnie Gabowitz, and this is Ward Talk. I'm talking to Jane Lumm from Ward 2. Well, Jane, we were just talking a lot about the solid waste management plan, and I think this particular topic really isn't in the front of people's minds.
No.
You know, there's so many other big issues that we're dealing with.
Very much so.
And you consider this a very important
it is.
topic.
Yes.
So I'm going to give you some more time to talk about it.
Thank you, because I do think it would be nice for folks to know what we'll be discussing in the upcoming weeks. So 2 days ago, the consultant had the last meeting with the group of committee advisors, if you will, people who've been participating, and this report will be released. And again, council will have a work session on this topic September 9th, and then ultimately the goal is to adopt the solid waste management plan, the long-term plan. I can speak to some key recommendations from this plan, and I'll break it down into residential, commercial, and for downtown areas. For residential, some of the proposals are to adopt year-round compost collection every other week, from December to March.
So does that mean we don't have any compost collection right now?
Not for that period of time. To implement a bulky item collection program, and to consolidate, this is a biggie, consolidate the waste, recycling, and compost collection services. So basically there'd be one truck going around the neighborhood, not a couple.
And just to think about it, when you have all these trucks going around, you're also affecting the environment with all the fumes, and, and you're blocking the streets. And so there are some other factors involved.
That, and just intuitively makes a big, it makes a lot of sense, efficiency-wise. And in this case, one of the recommendations is that the city be the provider, which would generate savings of significant savings, $775,000 a year, it's estimated, which would pay for these other new programs. On the commercial side, the proposal includes recommendations to adopt a commercial organics collection, which I know would help a lot of the restaurants and other downtown businesses. Increase multifamily collection for student move in and move out. That's a big deal for all those residential neighborhoods, if you will, especially where a lot of trash is generated by our students, and they need more increased collection services. To also, another recommendation is to have a phased approach to begin requirements for the disposal of construction and demolition debris, and also for commercial. Again, this is a significant recommendation to consolidate the collection services for waste, recycling, and compost. And then similarly for downtown, an addition of some other routes on Saturdays and Sundays to address their concerns with need for greater services.
And downtown, just for a moment to think about it, is really a combination of residential and business and commercial.
Absolutely. Yep.
So you
so when I said student housing, multifamily, and residential, that certainly it's a need that exists in the downtown area. It absolutely does. And so and also incorporated in this solid waste, it's called the Solid Waste Resources Management Plan, it are a couple funding recommendations that will need to be studied to see, one, if the city can adopt some additional fees. One would be they call it a waste diversion fee. Another would they're thinking about looking at a Headley override of the solid waste millage to increase the solid waste millage back to 3 mills. On that one, I will just say I think it would be prudent to at least start with, if we're going to consolidate, if that's the recommendation, collection contracts, to see what we can get done with the savings before we look at, a way to increase revenues and tax people more, frankly.
And has the city looked at other cities like ours, of our size, and looked at how they have solved these problems? Do you have something to compare
I can't answer
to?
that question at this point. This report, I actually haven't gone through it. The draft was released on Tuesday. It's over 300 pages.
So I'm ahead of time.
Yeah,
okay.
Just two other big aspects of this, important aspects, are questions that have come up is the potential to form a regional solid waste authority, if you will. And the council was asked to join a regional authority and approve these articles of incorporation back in March. The council postponed action on that.
Was this a county-wide
Yeah,
proposal?
it's so far, yeah, it's made up by Ypsilanti, Dexter, Saline, plus Scioto, Ann Arbor, Pittsfield,
it's
Ypsi
regional.
townships, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we need to understand the pros and cons of this. Council felt, I was one of them, that it was very premature to do anything in this regard prior to seeing the solid waste plan, and let alone take action like, in terms of as important as joining a regional authority. And we need to understand, the pros and cons, and none of the pros and cons have been provided at this point, including, again, obviously the concept is, behind a regional authority is to generate, economies of scale, and but certainly, as with anything, the devil's in the detail, and the actual cost benefit for Ann Arbor residents and for the city will depend on the specific cost sharing formulas that the authority ultimately adopts, and we haven't seen any of that.
That sounds very complicated.
Yeah, it will be.
Yeah.
And then just one other item, issue, matter that to be discussed along with this solid waste management plan is this issue of the MRF operation going forward. Recycle Ann Arbor has operated the MRF since 2017, and the city is going to issue a request for proposal for the operation of the MRF. It's a significant contract, 10 years, $16 million contract, and one that we should competitively bid. And so the city is going to competitively bid this. For me, competitive bidding is a core principle, and there were code revisions proposed on competitive bidding in June and July to waive this requirement, and it was prompted by this RFP for Recycle Ann Arbor, and the staff proposal originally would have granted the administrator the authority to waive the competitive bidding requirement. I objected to that staff proposal. Council agreed, and the waiver authority, the joint waiver authority requiring council to also, which is the way the code is structured today, was retained, which I think is obviously a good thing. So I just think it's an essential component of fiscal responsibility to competitively bid contracts, particularly, a contract of that kind of magnitude. So
that's a lot on your plate.
Yeah.
In the few minutes we have left, I know we're always talking about safety and what improvements are being made, and there's an expression called the road diet of adjusting and changing.
Eliminating lanes of traffic.
Right. So can we touch upon that in the few
Sure.
minutes we have left?
Well, thanks for asking about this as well. And there were a couple that were the recent road diet proposals came to council on August 5th, and there were three affected Earhart, Green, and Traverwood roads. And Earhart and Green are in the 2nd Ward, Traverwood's in Ward 1, and I did not support the Earhart and Green Road proposals. The Earhart proposal was for that section of Earhart from US 23 to Waldenwood, and it was to.
And that's a very busy area.
Well, not as busy as Green, but relatively busy. And it was to take this section from 4 to 2 lanes, add bike lanes in both directions, and install roundabouts at Glacier and Waldenwood. And the issue there were issues and concerns raised about that. Earhart Glacier, we always have a metric called the level of service metric. If we did that, if we installed that roundabout, it would take it from, it's rated a D now, which isn't a great rating, to an E or F. So, and as council members, we can reject developments if the levels of service at intersections are impacted and in a downward way, and the metric is an E or F. So
Was that voted down?
Yes, it was a 5-6 vote, and it also was not clear if 2 roundabouts were needed in such a small area. That was an issue raised by many residents. It seemed like a solution in search of a problem, frankly. And then the Green Road, there were various concerns with regard to that. That was primarily to reduce it from 5 vehicle lanes south of Commonwealth Boulevard, where that comes into Green, to 4 vehicle lanes, and narrow the lanes to 10 feet, and use the freed up width to add bike lanes. Issues, concerns there. It's there are heavy traffic volumes there.
So just to wrap up,
Okay.
in terms of the time frame, are we looking at, let's say, within the next 6 months, something will be happening with
Well, we
that?
voted these down, so
Oh, so none of those
unfortunately,
were voted.
Earhart's not to be resurfaced. It desperately needs to be remilled and resurfaced until 2023. We're going to see what we can do to move that up, and Green Road is going to be resurfaced.
Okay, so now you're concentrating on improving the road conditions as they are now.
Right, and there are ways we can improve safety. On Green Road, it's been brought to my attention there are a couple places where we could add some crosswalks or a flashing light to slow some traffic. Nothing, in my view, as draconian as what was proposed. And you know, I do seriously question if this road narrowing lanes would improve safety, because and there's also other concerns in terms of diverting traffic elsewhere. Nixon Road,
It's like, where are they going to go?
Right.
They're still there.
Precisely, precisely. And there was also strong opposition from the neighbors. So, and that's important.
Well, next time you come, I know you're going to have some great stories to tell and how
kind of you to
things
say
have moved
that.
along.
Well, I'm just
and I'm really hopeful that you know, and I know based on what I've seen, you know, there are improvements and things are happening, but everything
most definitely
takes time.
It sure does.
Right.
So thank you very much for providing us all this opportunity to share this information with your audience.
And thank you for all the detail,
Oh, you're
which
very
is greatly
welcome.
appreciated by me.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Remember to join us for a new episode every 3rd Wednesday of the month. We'd like to hear from you, so please email us at ctn@a2gov.org, attention Ward Talk. You can also follow CTN and ask questions on Twitter at twitter.com/CTN in Arbor. We'll make sure to include your questions. For Ward Talk, I'm Bonnie Gabowitz. Until next month.